Well, this gets to the sort of whole heart of the issue, doesn't it? Because, you know, the country voted to leave the EU, so why would you vote against the actual legislation to make that happen?
I think first and foremost it's right to point out that some people voted out, but very much in my community in Southwark, people voted Remain. I made a very simple promise. It should be an unnecessary promise when I stood in the 2015 election. I followed a Liberal Democrat who'd voted for things like the bedroom tax, legal aid cuts and done a lot of damage to local communities. So my very simple promise was I won't support anything in Parliament that I believe will damage or harm local people. Article 50 is a test of that, and in my community we've seen some of the damage already since the referendum, and well before we get to the point
the problem was, and you know, this obviously was also an issue at the Supreme Court, was that the referendum vote took that decision out of the hands of MPs. It was about giving it directly to the people. So in a way, you no longer sort of have to keep fighting that corner because the public have already spoken.
That's one understanding, and I appreciate that this is very much where much of the narrative and debate has been. But actually, what MPs voted for when they chose to have a referendum was an advisory referendum. It wasn't a binding referendum, and Parliament could have had. We could have voted for.
You know, an advisory referendum. I understand technically you're right, but that's kind of pointless, isn't it?
But it was a test of opinion at one point, as any election is. An election, we have elections frequently for the same reason that opinions shift.
Do you don't think it really counted, this referendum? It was kind of not really a referendum.
I think what I've seen...
Because the result came in the wrong way, actually. Let's just pretend it didn't happen.
It's not about right or wrong way, it's about the damage that I've seen, and including too, and I go out campaigning every week.
What have you seen?
So jobs are being lost in my community. And
Where?
And I was with, well, companies that haven't taken premises, businesses that haven't expanded. I was talking to businesses...
Because actually at the moment, and I voted Remain, there is very little evidence there's been any real damage to the economy. In fact, quite the opposite.
Well,
I mean, we accept that it hasn't been triggered yet, and we haven't actually Brexited, but why not be optimistic and be positive? Why just be endlessly negative, say the referendum wasn't a real one, we should try and have another one?
You're suggesting I'm not being positive. I'm being positive about the jobs that exist and are successful and businesses that are thriving as a direct result of our membership of the European Union. Now, if I chose to trigger Article 50, which I won't, but even if I did, I am saying for 2 years we will be extricating from the European Union, and for a further period there will be uncertainty over what our new trade agreement will be that could go on for 5 years.
You were one of the 36 Labour MPs to nominate Jeremy Corbyn as a candidate for leader, weren't you?
Yes.
Then you regretted that decision?
Yes.
So why should we listen to you about this?
Well, I'm standing up for my community. I'm not relying on you...
your party into total chaos by putting a leader in there who couldn't possibly, by common consent, win an election.
And again...
Labour's been criticised... Well, hang on. Labour's been heavily criticised for its lack of opposition on this very issue. You're one of the people that put Corbyn in there, and you're one of the people who's now turned around and said it was a terrible mistake. There is a bit of a pattern, isn't there, to your work here?
I've been very public about my support for an alternative Jeremy last year's leadership election, but that's settled. And the idea that this is a Labour, you know, not providing opposition is nonsense. And look at the mess the government has got itself in. Cameron has gone early, Phillips resigned from Parliament even though he supported Brexit.
Is Jeremy Corbyn going to be with you and vote against triggering Article 50?
The Shadow Cabinet haven't made a decision on the vote, but Jeremy has indicated he won't obstruct Article 50. But the decision on how we will be whipped or whether we will be whipped has not been taken yet.
So he's already come out and said he will not.
He said he won't
vote against triggering Article 50.
If there is a three-line whip on it, what will you do?
Well, it depends which way the whip is, but I won't. If the whip
assuming you sign up to the Article 50, what will you do?
I will not be as party policy. Even adopted our conference in September after the referendum was to.
So what will you do?
I'll rebel, but in the interest of my constituents.
Do you feel? I mean, it's the biggest political decision of our lifetime, potentially ever.
Which is exactly why I need to stand up.
People may look at it and say, OK, stand up. Will you resign? I mean, it's a massive point of principle, isn't it?
Why would you resign the whip? No.
No, would you resign your parliamentary?
No.
Where does making a stand go, then?
Well, I think, you know...
if you absolutely don't agree with this...
Where am I to resign on this? I think, I mean, Southwark was very clearly it remains, so I don't think it'd be much point. Whereas, again, look at what's happened to Zac Goldsmith. Because of his support for Brexit, he's been thrown out of Parliament. And I think that the government need to look at that very carefully because it is the biggest issue facing all political parties.
Do you think... I mean, you nominated Jeremy Corbyn.
I did, yeah.
Do you think, as a Labour MP, he's the leader of the party, would he be providing better opposition if he also voted against Article 50?
I do, but he's made clear his position. and that's not to, what he has said, it is not to obstruct Article 50.
So a bloke you put in there, who now you wish you hadn't put in there, has now made a decision you completely disagree with, and you're now going to vote against him. This is a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Well, as I say, look at what the government is doing, because it's, you can criticise.
What about what the Labour Party's doing?
We aren't
Here's
the
a guy
though.
who put the leader in there,
the government that's putting
then
jobs at
told
risk
us
in
all
my
you'd made a
community.
terrible mistake, right? And we are where we are with the Labour Party. Now you want to defy the guy you put in there on the biggest political decision of our lifetime. There might be some Labour voters looking at you going, well, make your mind up, mate.
Well, I don't think they'll say that to me, because my position has been clear throughout and is very much in line with my own constituency and with the jobs that are at risk of even triggering Article 50.